but you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this. And that'll be a really interesting, this should be a video, why I didn't get saved. The rules. It was the rules. Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you for joining us for another week, another video, and another topic. This time we are talking about how we really felt when we first started reading the Word of God and how that's changed up to now. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay connected with all our new uploads. Hit like because that helps us out here on YouTube, and share it with anyone you think could benefit from our topics. Alrighty, we'll get started. Be blessed. So I grew up in the church, and I grew up with the Bible present every day. But when I actually started reading and studying for myself, I just expected that I was going to read this book and it was going to tell me all the things I could and could not do. So I was reading the Bible to get the do's and don'ts, because I had just resigned myself to the fact that that's how life was going to be. I wasn't excited about it. I was like, I'm going to get in there and it's going to be all the thou shalt nots, and I'm going to have to make peace with that and figure out.
That's a big book just to say thou shalt not.
Well, yeah, I really didn't know what was going to be in there. So I just flipped it open and I was like, all right, well, here we go. The funny thing was, I was trying to read it front to back like a regular book. So you get in the beginning, and it starts out that way.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. And so I get, through Genesis, and I'm like, okay, well, we done got most of the way through this chapter, this book, and we only got one rule, and they done broke that one. So
real quick.
I was like, where the rest of the rules at, Jesus? Then after, they get out of Egypt, you get a whole bunch of rules, and I was like, it's too much, it's too much.
We went from one rule to a whole lot of rules, and it's like, whoa.
And I was like, who gonna remember all this stuff? And I remember coming, and I'm gonna have to go back and look and see where it was when the Lord said, I will write it on your heart. So that you can keep it. And I didn't realize it then, but looking back, I realize now that was the beginning of God helping me understand that He provided a way for you to know what He desires for you in your life, and not to get caught up in the list, the laundry list, the rules and regulations, but to look for Him to make a change in your heart. And so that's really what it's been for me now, years later, as I continue to read and to study, regardless of which book I'm using, which translation I'm using, or if it's digital or it's a hard copy, learning more about Him and what He's going to do in my life versus
what you can't do in yours.
And why you should read it for yourself. Don't be intimidated by the Bible because of what people have told you is in it, or people have told you it says, or what people tell you God wants. You have to know it for yourself. And it cleared up so much confusion for me, because I just thought I was going to crack it open and be like, you can't chew gum today. Because every time I went to church, I had gum in my mouth.
Every third Tuesday, you cannot chew gum.
They told me spit it out.
It's in there.
How to make decisions and things like that. That's what I needed help with. So that it cleared up all of that, rule book mentality.
Well, I did not grow up in the church. I went sometime, but I wasn't in the church like Sylvia was. And I did have a Bible. My parents did talk about God. We were, you should do this and you shouldn't do that. But it wasn't like we're going to be doing this all the time type of thing. So I had a Bible, and I said, I'm going to read my Bible because it's good. I remember my cousin told me, we was little kids. We had to been maybe 7, 8. We were little, and he was like, my mama told me all I gotta do to go to heaven is go to church every Sunday. I'm going to church. I said, me too, because I want to go to heaven. All I gotta do is go to church on Sunday. That's easy. Look, if that was all it took to go to church, to go to heaven was to go to church on Sunday, some people still wouldn't make it. let's go to church on Sunday. I still wasn't going, you know. Shoot, like I was dragging myself somewhere. So I came up with this, okay, I'm gonna read the Bible so that I can find out, you know. Well, I thought I was gonna read the Bible and it was gonna talk to me about Jesus. I thought it was a big book about Jesus. Genesis to Revelation, Jesus. Jesus.
Got in there a few times, like, when is he gonna show up?
Now, in the beginning, he was there, but I didn't have that understanding. But I thought I was just gonna be reading about Jesus, big book of Jesus, and I found out there was way more than just Jesus.
Well, and it's more than
Way
him.
more.
And you find what I didn't expect to find me in there.
We in there too. We in there.
Yes, from start to finish,
Mhm.
we in there.
But I mean, it just goes. It's the misconception that we have where you avoid something because you think you know what it is. I know this is what it is, so I ain't doing all that because I know what it is. But in all actuality, when you step into it, you're like, oh, hold on, wait, this is so much more. Because yes, the Bible does talk about Jesus, but oh my goodness, there are so many other people that we can. Now, Jesus is the ultimate standard. He is the example. We get that. But there are other people in the Bible that you can look at and say, hey, you know, this characteristic about them,
Yep.
I need that. You know, I can take that on. Or that characteristic right there,
Was that me? Was I acting like that? Oh, is that what that does?
I remember when I acted just like her. Or I remember just when this happened. You know, so it was so much more than what my little mind had
Yes.
worked out. This big book of Jesus.
And you know, you bring up a really good point.
Really good point.
You bring up a really good point when you said it was so much more than your mind had grasped or planned or thought could be in there. Because we make assumptions about this book, but it was divinely inspired by God, and He thinks beyond what our little minds can grasp. And so we looked at it, this book ain't this, and it's got that, and this. Honey, he's so far past you.
Right. Your little mind can't even wrap around it.
No. And so, you know, like I would be reading, or even before I started reading, you know, you have this image in your mind. I'm gonna read the Bible, and it's gonna be like this. Oh, amen.
I know.
But really, you're reading the Bible and you like, what? Wait a minute, wait.
Right. Let me go see, because hold on, did they just? Yep.
You go through so many emotions, and you have so many realizations, and it is very it's very stimulating. It's very educational, and it is very reassuring and convicting. And you go through all of this and then some as you read through how we as people are to each other and how we are to our God. And you realize that's me. And some good parts and then some bad ones.
Some good and some bad. And you know what? Something else. I was talking to some of the kids at the church the other day, and they was asking about, you know, Bible being real and how this and how that. And I was explaining to them, like, you know that same Roman Empire that you learn about in your social studies book at school, that same Caesar that we talking about,
Right.
is you know that's the one right there, right? You know that's him. You know all the Greek mythology people that have all these myths that I put out there, myths that is out there. You know they was right here. They were arguing the Bible even then, letting them know that their way was not right on these things that you are learning, that we learn about outside of the Bible. It ties in there, and there are things in history that take place in the Bible that outside the Bible. You know, it proves it. So it's just like we're always trying to fight against it and prove it wrong, but
It's constantly proving itself.
It's constantly proving itself.
And it's okay to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of questions. And, you feel afraid to challenge it for various reasons. Some of them good, some of them bad. But it's okay to ask questions. Why is that? Why did this happen? What is going on here? Why don't people do these things? The realization for me in the Bible was that it wasn't necessarily just a book about God. It was a book about me. And that it points us to Christ and why we need him. Mm-hmm. And what his role is in our life because of where we fail as people. And so that's what I learned. I was like, I thought I was going to read about the Lord and Savior. And he was like, no, you got to read about yourself.
You're going to find out how to save us. Go save you from yourself. That's what
right.
you have to read about.
I got this. We're going to talk about you. Okay, how we want to end it?
I thought there was another question.
Oh, what was the other question?
I don't remember.
I think we just rolled on it. Wasn't it like, what did you find or what did you learn?
Oh, well, then we
into
kind of,
it.
yeah.
We rolled on into it. See?
Mission accomplished.
Mission
Check.
So, anyway, read the Bible is the point. That's the point. That was the point.